Welcome to MMA Dogs. My name is Hector, and as always, thank you for tuning in. Big shout out and a big thank you to all of our clients. And we got UFC Fight Night 45. It's been a really long day, but everything is set to go. The homework is done, and now it's time to take the test. Woo-wee. So first things first, you never want to bet. You never want to wager more than you can afford to lose. Second thing is you always want to check your local government laws and all that good jazz. And then third thing is much respect to any woman or man that steps into the octagon because they deserve it. So we will have for our first fight Wednesday, the UFC debut, the first ever strawweight women's fight, and we have a really, really good matchup here. We have Claudia Gadelha versus Tina Lahdemaki, and with going into this fight, I was very, very familiar with Claudia. I remember the fight she had in Invicta approximately 1 year ago, a year and 3 days ago. And, oh man, I was very impressed by this girl. And I knew that when the UFC added, or when, I didn't think it would be this quick. I didn't think it would be a year. But a year later, the UFC decides, you know what, let's put on the strawweights. They got the Ultimate Fighter coming up and all that good stuff. So here we are, and Claudia's in here, from Nova União, training with Jose Aldo, Renan Barao, and all those savages down there. Coach Andre Pederneiras. I mean, she is just something else. I remember the first time I watched her, one of the first times actually that I watched her fight, I thought to myself, man, she's built like a mini cyborg. And although her game is different in cyborgs, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but the way she is built, just man, she is just muscular on top of muscle. And yet her face still remains feminine, which is nice to see, considering that when girls start messing around with stuff and they start changing and this and that. So this girl, I mean, she's just the full package, well-rounded, smart, just jiu-jitsu, the striking, just everything you want to see, the wrestling. And so I was very excited when I found out she was fighting the Jelly Bean, and started doing my research on her. And looking at her, watching her fights and looking at her opposition, it's just not at the same level. So that just added even more confidence into Claudia. And so I am going to go with Claudia Gadelha here, Claudinha. Definitely for the win, definitely for the bet, and we'll go over the bets at the end, of course. And moving right along to the next fight, we have a very interesting matchup here in Yosdenis Cedeno versus Jerrod Sanders. Now, with Jerrod Sanders, we have a guy taking the fight on short notice, and he likes to fight at 145, even though he's very big, very muscular, very thick. He likes to fight at 145, and he's taking this fight on short notice, so he's fighting at 155. So he's got that 10-pound wiggle room. And he's fighting a guy in Yosdenis who made his debut against Ernest Chavez, and I was expecting to see more from Cedeno. And Chavez just, dominated him. Took advantage of Cedeno's lack of wrestling, lack of takedown defense, and that was it. But Cedeno was not 100% in that fight, and I could tell he wasn't 100% in that fight. So it's very, very interesting to see what he's going to bring to the table tomorrow, or should I say tonight. Compared to what he did in his debut. But with Sanders, he's facing another wrestler, and it's basically a striker versus wrestler matchup here. And when the striker when the striker has to worry about being taken down, that takes away a lot of the striking ability. So it's a do not bet, because it takes a very, very special striker to be able to not only neutralize but knock out, or get 2 out of 3 rounds against that wrestler. And Sanders, like I said, he's not a slouch, and he's a decorated wrestler, and so it's a do not bet. And until Cedeno can show me that he can handle the wrestlers, I have to go with Sanders. Sanders by decision. And the next fight is even more exciting to me, even more interesting to me. And bantamweights, Sterling versus Viana. So in Sterling, we have a guy who thoroughly impressed me in his debut. Coming into the UFC, of course, he was undefeated. And watching the footage on him, doing the research on him, I was already impressed with that fight he had with Cody Gibson, I believe. Let me double check here. Yeah, Cody Gibson. He just really impressed me. And I have nothing but good things to say about him. With Viana, in his earlier fights, I was impressed with him. I thought to myself, wow, maybe we have a little mini Junior Dos Santos on our hands. He has the same head coach and everything, and wow, really excited for this guy. And his last two fights, I mean, you can't really blame him for losing to Dillashaw, but especially in his fight with Ramiro Hernandez, with Junior Hernandez. Man, the way Viana was fighting, running away, and just I was not impressed with him at all. So in this matchup, we have another situation where it's going to be a wrestler with decent striking going up against a guy who is going to be looking for that big bomb. So I'm going to go with Sterling here. Definitely Sterling for the win. I'm going to say by decision. Probably a 29-28, maybe a 30-27 for Sterling. And at first I was looking at the price, minus 200. I wish the price was a little better, minus around minus 175, minus 180, but it doesn't, it's just a small change. But with Sterling, I really like him. Minus 200, that's good. Minus 210, that's fine too. Once it gets up to like minus 230, minus 250, that would be out of range. But minus 200, minus 210, minus 215, that's fine and dandy. So Sterling for the win, Sterling for the bet, and we will get into that. And then moving along to the next fight, we have another pair of bantamweights, but this time they are women, and that's Duke and Smith. Duke, I had much higher hopes for her, I really did, and I thought she'd be able to do more with her reach, her length, her kicks, athleticism, just natural ability. And she hasn't panned out quite to what I had expected. And with Leslie Smith, she doesn't impress me. But overall, with her overall game, but the one thing that really does impress me about her is her toughness. She's just very tough, very gritty fighter, and she brings it just the way a fighter should. So it's a tough test for Duke, and I don't blame the public for betting Smith and continuing to keep her as a favorite for these last few days. Smith is still the favorite, and but I have to go with Duke. I have to go with Duke still until that Besh Correa fight. That was a very weird fight. I don't think that a whole camp will make that mistake again. And I expect Duke to get the decision. So Duke for the win. And moving along to the next one. Very interesting matchup here. Very, very interesting matchup. One of my favorite fighters. Gleison Tibau versus Pat Healy. And with Tibau, I think it's very interesting the way he has, over the years, mastered the weight cut. And it's this massive guy that goes in there with excellent jiu-jitsu, very good wrestling, very tough. But in Healy, he's facing a guy that's very similar to him, and Healy has not had an easy run in the UFC. He last faced Masvidal, Bobby Green, Habib, and at first when this fight got announced, I thought, oh yeah, whoosh, Tibau, and I knew that the public would be turned off by Tibau because he got knocked out by Michael Johnson. But Michael Johnson's nothing to be upset about losing. And a knockout stinks and it sucks, but still, it's Michael Johnson. And but as I started refreshing myself on the fights and watching their fights, I couldn't help but see the tough road that has led Pat Healy to the record that he's at now with all these losses and the Pat Healy that we saw in the Jim Miller in the Jim Miller fight is the Pat Healy that I expect to see tomorrow night. And I have to go with Healy here. I have to go with Healy. The strengths that Gleison Tibau brings to the table are going to be neutralized by Pat Healy. I expect the fight to be competitive, but in the end, I expect Healy to get his hand raised. So Healy for the slight upset. And on to the next fight. Another interesting fight where at first glance I thought to myself, Alex White going up against Lucas Martins. Oh, yeah, Alex White. Whoosh. But once I started doing the research and watching, refreshing it again, I couldn't help but see something in Martins, and Martins they're both young guys. They're both 25 years old. But with Martins, I was just watching this guy fight. I see something in him, and I can't ignore it. And then watching the weigh-ins, I think he did something very smart by not fighting 155, dropping down all the way down to 135. 135, he's 6 feet tall, probably 5'11", 6 feet tall. That's too light. That's way too light. He's got a thin frame, a small frame, which is why he was able to make that cut. But still, that's a big cut. So 145, I think, suits him better. And I think that's the right weight class for him. He looked very, very strong. He had a great cut, very healthy at the weigh-in. And I expect him to go out there and give Alex White hell. Now, I do expect the line to drop even more. So Lucas Martins will become even more of an underdog. We got him at plus 150, but I wouldn't be surprised if the line's at plus 170, plus 175, maybe even higher come fight time. So I'm going to go for the slight upset here with Lucas Martins for the win. And in the next fight, John Lineker versus Ozkilic. Alptekin, probably one of the coolest names in the UFC. Alptekin Ozkilic. When this fight got announced, I thought to myself, wow, this would be a very interesting matchup for Lineker because he's going to have to deal with a wrestler. And watching what Ali Bagautinov did to him. So I went back and watched that fight. I thought to myself, holy crap, John Lineker did a better job than I had engraved in my mind. What my memory could recall. That, wow, Lineker did a better job. I think it was a 29-28 decision against Lineker, of course. But Ali Bagautinov, being on EPO and all the stuff that he's on, yeah, it's no surprise. This guy, he's a tough guy. And we bet Ali and we won. And in this fight, I'm thinking to myself, all right, now let me see something in Alp so that we can bet him at plus 200, plus 230, plus 240. But man, once I started doing, refreshing myself on him again, I thought to myself, wow, what in the world is this guy, Alp going to do to John Lineker? First of all, the way he fights reminds me of the way he throws his punches reminds me of like Sean Shirk. Has short little arms, and that is not going to be a good thing when he faces John Lineker. And with John Lineker, we know what we're getting with this guy. He's very powerful, made the weight. I think he weighed 125 and a half today. I want to say 125 and a half. And I see John Lineker knocking out Alp in the second round. In the second round is when you can really see John Lineker get comfortable and find his range. So I really like John Lineker a lot here. Second round knockout. With Alp, he's got the wrestling but John Lineker's takedown defense isn't bad. And with Alp, if he's been training at Belmore Kickboxing Academy in New York, and oh man, I hope this guy, unluckily for him, but I hope this guy wants to go out there and strike with John Lineker, because man, he is going he's going to feel something that he's never felt in his career. I don't think Alp's ever been knocked out. So just the hands of stone. They call him the hands of stone for a reason. And I see John Lineker getting that knockout. And I want to say John Lineker's at minus 265. I just saw him at right now. Yep, minus 265. So I don't know if the line will get better than that. It'll probably be where it sits at. But John Lineker for the win. And I don't know, once again, I don't know what people are seeing in Alp. And wow, yeah. So moving on to the next one. We have, I'm surprised these guys are fighting above some of these other cards, but Joe Proctor versus Justin Salas. Very evenly matched. Really, this fight is a toss-up, when Justin Salas is this nasty natch of losing one, winning one, losing one, winning one, losing one, winning one. And his win over Ben Wall, it was impressive, but, against Ben Wall. And then Joe Proctor, his win over Cristiano Marcelo, but come on, against Cristiano Marcelo. So I do see a little bit more life, a little bit more aggression, a little bit more attitude from Joe Proctor than Salas. And as far as how they match up, stylistically, it really is a toss-up. I mean, both guys, I could see either guy winning, and but I do favor Proctor here. So Proctor by decision. Moving right along to the next one here. Rick Story versus Leonardo Mafra. Here we got another Alptekin. Yeah, I looked at Leonardo. I said, all right, let me see what I can find in this guy. What does this guy have to offer that I need to be concerned about, or Rick Story needs to be concerned about? Investing our hard-earned money in to betting against this guy, Leonardo Mafra. Is he worth putting something on him or what? Or let's take a look at it. So I'm taking a look at this guy and I'm thinking to myself, what in the world is Leonardo Mafra doing on a main card against Rick Story? And the only thing I could think of, well, there's a couple things I could think of, but one, the UFC believes that Rick Story beat Kelvin Gastelum. Some people believe that. Dana White and Joe Silva may believe that. Two, perhaps Leonardo Mafra has improved drastically since his last fight 2 months ago. Well, I doubt it's that, because I watched his fight with, what is his name, Marco Perrota, and I was not impressed one bit. I mean, not at all impressed. And the only thing I can think of is that when people tune in, people who aren't familiar with Mafra are going to see this big, ripped Brazilian guy who's just, convinced himself that he's going to go out there and put up a fight against Rick Story. But Rick Story, on the other hand, is not taking this fight lightly. He prepared at the MMA Lab, which is one of my favorite MMA camps. And I am loving Rick Story all the way to the bank in this fight. Rick Story for the win. And we'll definitely be betting it too. Now, we got... Oh, and the other thing just to touch on is Rick Story is going to have a big wrestling advantage here. Huge wrestling advantage. And I know about Mafra's Muay Thai and all this and that, but it just does not impress me one bit. And yeah, Rick Story all the way with that one. And here we go. Edson Barboza versus Evan Dunham. So when this fight got announced, I thought to myself, oh man, maybe Dunham has a chance, because Barboza is a fighter that, my goodness, this guy, man, he has just the... Well, watching him fight is, if you bet on him, it's almost like you're going to have a heart attack. And if you bet against him, you get excited, and then he ends up winning. So he's very lucky when he fights. And his chin is not good at all. He's very flashy. You know, he's got very technical, very flashy, very, very good kicks. He's just a very good fighter, but the chin is just horrible. But Evan Dunham is not a knockout artist. And in my opinion, Evan Dunham's best attribute is the dirty boxing, dirty clinch game, wrestling. He's an underrated wrestler, really. But in order to get there, he's gonna have to close that distance. And Barboza and his kicks and Barboza and his strikes is gonna be very, very dangerous. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to go with Barboza for decision. Barboza's time will come, but not yet. So Barboza by decision, and that's it. Do not bet. Nearly minus 250, 260. No, do not bet. But then, you know, the other side is, well, it's intriguing to look at Dunham, but really, if Dunham gets knocked out, I won't be surprised one bit. If you take a look at Dunham's most recent fights, you know, with Donald Cerrone, Rafael dos Anjos, Gleison Tibau, that was a split. TJ Grant. So he hasn't won a fight in over 2 years convincingly, and that was when he knocked out Nick Lentz, a 145-pounder. So why would you want to waste your money on that? So Barboza, but do not bet. And then last but not least, we have the Cowboy Cerrone versus Jim Miller. Now, let's be serious here. Once again, Barboza, I'm actually like, I think it's funny that Barboza and Cerrone are both fighting on the same card, because one of these guys is going to lose. And on this card, I think it's Cerrone's turn to lose here, because Jim Miller has looked like a total savage in his last 2 fights. Ever since he had that loss, which got overturned to Pat Healy, I think that lit a firecracker. Lit a fire on his ass, and he has just looked very impressive to me. With Cerrone, we got a guy here who mentally, if you wanted to, I think if Cerrone wanted to, he could, on any given night, beat just about any fighter, any top. I don't think he'd beat the top 2 fighters, but top 3, 4, 5 fighters. And then with with the way he talks about stuff and the way he behaves about some of the things, and talking about all his toys, and he wants to fight as much as possible. He loves getting paid. That's all great and all, but I don't want to invest my hard-earned money on a fighter who talks like that and does things like that. And with Jim Miller, I know what I'm getting out of Jim Miller. And at plus 220, plus 230, you got to be kidding me. So Jim Miller all the way. And it's going to be a small play, but still a play nonetheless. So that covers all of the picks, all of the predictions. Obviously, if it's a do not bet, there's a good chance. It's a 50-50 chance, maybe even higher, that the other fighter could win. If it's a bet, well, then we got the stats on the website: 5 stars, 4 stars, and 3-star. You'll see them all on our website. And so 5-star plays for UFC Fight Night 45. Unfortunately, there are none. Of course, I'm always looking for a 5-star play, but there is none. But we had a close call, and that is Gadelha. And Claudia Gadelha, she should come through with flying colors here. So 4 stars. 4 stars for her. A large play on her. 3 stars. We got Rick, the horror story. He will be a medium play. Lineker, John the Hands of Stone Lineker. He will also be a medium play. Sterling, not Donald Sterling, Aljamain Sterling. He will be a small play. And Jim Miller, he will also be a small play, 3 stars. So that's not bad. We got 1 4-star play and 4 3-star plays. Now, as far as how we're going to line up the bets, MMA Dogs bets. 1 unit equals 1% of the bankroll. So we'll take Gadelha and Story. So Gadelha is minus 450, Story minus 295. 2-leg parlay, that gives us minus 157. So we will put 1.5 units to win 0.96. Then we'll take Gadelha again at the same price, plus Lineker at minus 265. That gives us minus 146. 1.5 units to win 1.03. Gadelha again, plus Sterling at minus 200 gives us minus 120. 1.5 units to win 1.25. So heavy on Gadelha, but she is a 4-star large play, so that's why. And then moving right along here, Story at minus 295 and Lineker at minus 265 gives us minus 118, half a unit to win 0.42. Story again and Sterling again at the same price gives us plus 101, half a unit to win 0.51. Lineker at the same price and Sterling gives us plus 107, half a unit to win 0.54. So those are also all 2-leg parlays. And a little bit smaller, of course, than Gadelha, but we already had those fighters up there anyways. So got those out of the way there. And then Jim Miller at plus 220, which will probably keep rising. 1.5 units to win 3.30. That is a nice play there. And then round robin of 2s. So a round robin of 2s. Total bet is 0.96 units. If they all win, we win 4.17. That's Duke at plus 120, Healy at plus 140, Martins at plus 150, and Proctor at plus 115. So the total on the night is 8.46 units to win 12.18 units. So that wraps it all up. And we got some more fights, more exciting fights are on the way this Saturday. So, knock on wood. Your fingers crossed that everything we've done, all the work leading up to this, all the homework, and the fighters that we expect to show up will show up on Wednesday night. And that does it. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you're tuning in after the fights, feel free to check out our website. You've got all the information you need, MMADAWGS.com. And I look forward to talking to you guys in the next video.